makes most women start a business? Is it passion, money, or freedom? Welcome to Female Founders, the podcast that takes you behind the scene with women who are founders and CEOs to help you start and scale a successful business of your own. I am your host, Nagelia de Ravin. Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Female Founders. In today's episode, I have the pleasure of speaking with Christian Jennings, also known as CJ. CJ is the founder and CEO of Unbound Consulting, a business strategist, COO, and business coach with an incredible 20 years of experience in the industry. She is a visionary and a maker, working closely with founders, startups, and small and medium-sized businesses to bring clarity, focus, and strategic solutions to their businesses. Great having you here with me, Christian. Should I call you CJ?
CJ is great.
Can you tell us a little bit more about your journey from being integrated marketing strategist to a COO and now a business coach?
Sure. So I've started my entire career, everywhere I've worked has been a startup. And I'm typically one of the first 5 employees, always on the ground floor. And that has given me the opportunity to identify unique new scenarios for companies, to build new service offerings and to even build sister companies for them. And with them being startups, specifically in spaces that are maybe unknown, I worked for the original social media company as one of the first agencies I worked for. They kind of given me room to grow and try new things. I've even had a COO in the past laugh at me when I said the next big thing is this, but then she said, okay, go, spend 50% of your time there. And lo and behold, it happened. So just over the years, as I've been doing this, at the heart of what I was doing was really business strategy, trying to connect the dots between business goals, the business strategy, all the way down to like marketing execution. And doing so in a startup environment has allowed me to play multiple roles, wear multiple hats every single time. And I've just really enjoyed that process. And I learned that I have an innate passion for just helping entrepreneurs succeed. And I didn't really care what industry it was in. I even worked in gaming for a year and a half with someone that's well known in the industry. And I even said to him, I know nothing about gaming. And he was like, you're a smart girl, you'll figure it out. And that's when I was like, got it. I know what my role is. And so in the last agency I worked for, I'll never forget coming in as a co-owner situation and the co-owner husband-wife situation. And the wife was like, for the sake of our marriage, I don't need to be second in command. And I was like, got it. I love doing that process. And I remember the visionaries slamming a book on my desk. Traction is the book. It's one of the operating systems out there. And he was like, I want this. And I was like, all right, I'll figure it out. And I built and implemented EOS into that organization and really lived and breathed it for 5 years with them. And I realized that was where my passion truly was. So as I was leaving that agency and trying to figure out what I wanted to do next, I found myself chatting with, other coaches, other consultants that work in different fields. I had at least 2 say to me, oh, but you're not an integrator. Actually, you're a visionary. And I was like, no, I'm an integrator. They're like, no, you're a visionary. I was like, no, I'm an integrator. You don't just decide that you're a visionary. You have to have a vision. And it's just, through that process and through working with other clients, while I figured out what is my next thing, it was like the universe just kept pulling me back in. And I was like, I got it. My passion is working with startups, helping those founders bring their visions to life. I realized I have a niche of I love stepping into the moments of chaos, those big growth moments, the moments where there's issues and opportunities left and right and no one knows where to go. That's where I really shine. And that's when I just finally, decided, okay, everyone's been telling me, the universe has been telling me it's time to listen. And started my career as a coach. And that is the short version of how it all happened.
So you're not scared of working with startup because a lot of them fail in the first 5 years.
A lot of them do fail in the first 5 years. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that there isn't a partner there with the visionaries. Visionaries are, and I don't know if you know this, but 3% of the population are visionaries, only 3%. But they create 66% of the jobs. The reason why they fail, though, is a visionary's unique skill is not in the execution. Their unique skill is on the big idea. What is that big idea? What are the big opportunities? What are the big relationships I could build? But then you get into execution and you have teams saying things like their visionaries giving them whiplash, or people saying the priorities are shifting day after day after day. And that's not necessarily true. What's happening is the visionaries, their ideas keep coming and that's their job, but there's not someone there going, okay, what do we need to do to get there in the next 90 days and the next year? You need someone that understands the vision and can help establish a strategic path forward. I forget who is a philosopher that once says vision without execution is just hallucination. And I think that the startups that are failing are because the visionary doesn't have a true partner that can both clearly see the vision with him or her and then help execute against that vision. I like to say my superpower is living at 50,000 feet with the visionaries. I love it. I love the what if, but then I could parachute in and figure out, okay, now how do we make that happen? In what order? How do we prioritize how we're going to get there?
So pretty much you like the person who makes it happen. So the person, this is the vision, but how do I make it happen? And you're the person who come behind it, say like, hey, this is what we can do to make this possible.
Exactly. And I am not afraid of the startup environment. I think there are a lot of business consultants that thrive in that next stage. I think there needs to be a consultant to help these startups and these small businesses get to that next stage. So I always tell my clients, you're going to eventually outgrow me. At some point, you're going to graduate. And that's my goal. I want you to graduate and I want to hand you over to someone who will then take you to that, that next phase. But someone needs to be responsible for helping them put those key steps in place that are going to get them there today.
But I'm guessing, exactly. So I'm guessing the reason why you started your own because you wanted to work with a lot more startups. Instead of working with one startup for 5 years, for 6 years, you end up working with many of them at one time.
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. Like my big, hairy, audacious goal is to help 500 entrepreneurs in 5 years. So yes, I want to be able to help
500 in 5 years?
500 in 5 years. And there are a variety of ways to do that. So, I've built a network of other strong strategic coaches that can help support that. We figured out a system. There are ways to simply sit down with entrepreneurs and answer a few questions just over coffee to help them. But 500 entrepreneurs in 5 years is what I want to do. But really the whole idea of Unbound and why I wanted to become a consultant instead of being somewhere full time is, I'm unbound by the constraints of what larger firms create and the red tape they create. I fully believe that people need to have an operating system, but I also believe that every single company is unique in their needs, in their makeup, in their DNA, and how their leadership teams and how their visionaries process information. And because I'm unbound by those constraints, I could come in and create unique solutions for every single client. That's the strategist side of me. Is I don't want to go in and say, here's exactly how we're going to do it every single time. I have a proven process that says, okay, step one, we need to go through a discovery phase so we can figure out what those needs are, and then a planning phase. But the discovery and planning phase help guide me and my clients through the process of what are your unique needs and how can I help be a part of that?
So does that mean that they will need to have a full staff on board before you come in?
Not necessarily. I've worked with companies of all sizes. And most of the companies that I work with, I would say probably have anywhere from 5 to 25 employees at the moment. But I've also been that second person to walk in the door and say, oh, this is what you want to do, step one, and helping to build the teams. And that's what I did and spent 5 years at my last agency doing, was helping to build that from the ground up. And sometimes that meant that I was the integrator, plus I was, leading the strategic marketing team, plus I was also customer service, director, and whatever role was needed. And I would, one by one, build the teams around that for them. But there's an order and a priority to doing it and to doing it correctly. So it's all about how much time do we have to get there. Yeah. And then how do we prioritize those needs so that we can scale appropriately and we're not straining the companies in the process of this.
So now, do you come in and tell them ABC needs to be done and they need to get ABC done? Or can you also come in and they need ABC done, you actually get ABC done for them?
It's both, actually. I always tell my clients that once we've developed the plan, what my next move is to figure out that right mix of internal resources, external resources, and myself. How do we plug those in properly to get it done? So I fully embed myself and immerse myself into these companies to help move them forward. I tend to be a chameleon in that way. If I have the skill set, I will do it. If I do not have the skill set, I will find the person that does and have them do it.
You're like having like a full, how do I say that? The full, everything you need is right there in one place. Like if you can't do something, you can go find it, so they don't have to go find it themselves.
Exactly. That's my job, is to make that part easy. I work in the business so that these visionaries can work on the business, allow them to sit in the seat where they bring the greatest value to their company, building those big relationships, fostering relationships, coming up with the next big idea, staying up to date on what's happening in their industry. So I've spent a lot of time actually building myself a network and a collaborative of other, executive level consultants that I could pull in at any given moment, as well as a roster of other vendors and resources that I've used over the years. So essentially, I have someone for that. No matter what the need is, I got that person.
You got it. So now, as a business strategist, you work closely with, like you said, with visionaries and the leadership teams to bring clarity and focus to their businesses. Could you explain the process you follow to untangle the web of opportunities, issues, and chaos that we deal with on a daily basis with startups and SMBs?
Sure. Yeah. So I usually start every single relationship in a discovery phase. We start with, let's start with a workshop. And then we'll move into ongoing long-term support. But we first have to figure out what those needs are and what that looks like. So I do a lot of upfront homework where I'm requesting everything from access to Google Analytics all the way down to P&L reports from my clients and everything in between. I'm analyzing, assessing what they're doing today. I'm doing market research to see what's happening in the category, what's happening with competition, to understand where opportunity areas might be for us and where there might be gaps that we could fill and actually own. And pulling all that together and utilizing, surveys and other list of things that I work with my clients through to understand where there's misalignment on leadership teams. Oftentimes the analogy that I like to use is that everyone on the leadership team probably all agrees they're building a house. But if you ask them individually what kind of house they're building, the visionary is going to say a mansion, the CFO is going to say a bungalow, and your marketing director is going to say something in between. That's still misalignment, because if you let everyone run and go build the house they think they're building, at the end of the day, it's going to fall because you're not even going to have the right foundation for it. So I'm uncovering all of this through a lot of pre-workshop prep work. And then I'm coming into these workshops, and step number one is get that leadership team aligned. Here's where I'm seeing misalignment. Let's get aligned there. Here's where I'm seeing key opportunities. Let's talk about those opportunities, align on them. I take them through an exercise to make sure that we actually have the right business model and the right business strategy in place. And when I'm saying business strategy, it's really thinking about, where do we want to go 5-10 years from now? Where do we want to go? What is the ideal? And bringing that back down, okay, how do we get there? What does that look like 3 years from now? Okay, if that's what that looks like 3 years from now, what's our 1 year plan and what are our goals for the next 12 months. And then I drill it all the way down to, okay, so now what are we going to do for the next 90 days that's going to lead us towards that goal? So walking them through that exercise, we leave the meeting aligned on strategy, on business model, sometimes on the gaps that we need to fill first in the strategy and business model, and a plan. And then my job is to go help execute against that plan, not only doing, but keeping the leadership teams aligned, keeping them accountable to it, forcing hard conversations when hard conversations need to be forced, whatever that may be. My job is to keep progressing them forward.
So your job is to keep pushing them to move forward, but in the same direction.
Exactly. You want all the arrows pointing in the same direction, or, everyone rowing the boat in the same direction, or whatever analogy you like to use. But everyone has to be aligned, facing the same goal, and then remaining, on that path towards that goal. And there are things that happen along the way, but that's when we stop, we pause, we evaluate and assess opportunities or issues that might come up in the middle of it. And sometimes you have to reprioritize. But we're not going to suddenly shift without first aligning on that reprioritization, why we're reprioritizing, and then how we're going to keep moving forward.
But would you support a company or organization that is past the startup phase?
Oh, absolutely. I think that where I personally work best are either with startups that need help really building and getting their foundation set, getting clarity and focus around their vision and plans. But then I feel like every company and every especially those led by entrepreneurs, they hit these growth stages. And at every growth stage, suddenly it feels for a moment like that chaos has come back. And like those issues have come back, or perhaps they feel stagnant. I find that a lot of the clients that are sent my way through other referral sources are always the clients that are in the middle of those growth stages, and they're kind of stuck and they don't know how to push forward. So I will step in at any size and help figure out what is that path forward.
So, but now let's say, would you go into like a big organization?
I will for the right opportunities. My sweet spot is 100% in the startup to like small, medium-sized businesses. So, the like 10 to 250 employee range. But I will step into big organizations. Think about some of the big technology conglomerates without calling out any of their names. They almost, the way those are organized most frequently is almost like mini companies within the larger company. So in that case, I think I'm most effective when it's helping a division or a subset of that organization to get on, to get moving and get on path with strategy and planning part of that. But I would say that once, as far as the full organization serving in one of those fractional COO or CEO seats, I'm not going to do that for, a global, huge conglomerate. That's not where my interests lie, nor do I think that is my strength. That's when it's time to graduate them to someone else.
But now, Sage, what about entrepreneurs? The one that just a solo entrepreneur, they don't have any employees, but they feel stuck into their business, which we'll find a lot of women in that situation where they decided, okay, I'm going to stay home with my kid and I'm going to start my own company. It's a solo, they're on their own, but they have no clue what they are doing or where to even start. Right. So do you help this type of?
Absolutely. I help them all the time. And sometimes it's as simple as they have a big idea, but they have no clue what to do with it. Or they started doing something with it and it was successful, but now it's kind of like, holy crap, it's more than I can handle. What do I do next? And there's always this fear of starting to bring on employees or other resources, because then, you have to ensure you can pay for those resources. My job is to come in and show them, here's how you grow. Let's make sure you have an actual business model and a business strategy in place. You would be surprised how many entrepreneurs start with an idea, but they don't actually have a model or a strategy. let's get that set, and then let's figure out how you grow and scale. And that could be me sitting by their side and working one-on-one with them. It could be that plus me helping to identify resources, either full-time or part-time, that are going to help them scale, but doing it in a way that makes sense and makes that scale easy, both on the visionary themselves and for any potential employees coming in. But I love helping those solopreneurs. There are a lot of them out there. I am one of them.
A lot of them, more than you can think of.
Yeah.
So now, with over 20 years of experience in the industry, what are some of challenges you have observed among founders, startups, and SMEs when it's come to translating the vision into a reality? And how can you help them overcome these challenges, Jennifer?
Yeah. I think there are a few key challenges. One is typically visionaries are very frustrated because they can see the big picture. They see the opportunity. When there are big issues, they can clearly see the solution, but their inability to communicate that is very apparent. They believe they're communicating it really well, but to the rest of the team, they're shrugging their shoulders and they have no clue what's being said, or they think they know, but they're not doing it right. Communication is a huge part of the challenge that happens. And that's just because visionaries think very differently. So helping to come in and helping them understand how to clearly communicate their vision is one part of it. The other is kind of serving as an interpreter for them. I think another big challenge is getting the right people. We call it right people, right seats. It's not enough to have hired employees for a specific skill set. It has to be a combination of that plus a culture fit. So is your culture clearly defined? And if it's not, we need to do that first. Something as simple as core values are a huge key to success. Core values are a way that we hire employees, way we assess employees, and then they become the tools you give employees to allow them to go make decisions on your behalf or on the company's behalf, which kind of leads into the last big challenge, which are visionaries who are having a hard time letting go of the work, letting go of the vine, the fear of the quality of the work not being there if they take their hands off the reins is a very hard step for them. And for good reason. This is their baby, and they've likely gotten as far as they have today by bootstrapping it, by getting the work done themselves. But if they're going to grow and they're going to scale, they have to be able to hand over, delegate the day-to-day so they can continue to focus on where they bring the greatest value. And that goes right back to making sure that, the things I talked about earlier, clearly communicating the vision to the team, making sure they understand that, having core values established so the teams know how to make decisions on behalf of the organization, know how to best represent the organization, and making sure the right people are in place and the right processes. And I'm not talking about the mundane, overly detailed processes, but for every client, I come in and say, okay, let's start with the 20-80 rule. What's the 20% of the process that we need to identify, define, document, and train the team on that will get us to 80% productivity? If we could get the full team following that 20% first, we could then build on that, but we have to get them on that and following it every single time, first and foremost. I think a lot of people, when they finally decide, okay, we need process, they'll go way too in-depth on process. Then it's process overload. And then the team doesn't know what to do with it. No one's properly managing the change because that's a huge shift and change for them. So let's start with the 20%. Putting that in place. So usually you could slowly help visionaries, or I could slowly help visionaries get to that stage of being able to let go because you put the tools in place and show them how their team is going to be empowered to do the job for them and how they know that the team is doing it correctly.
Wow, this is so insightful, especially for startups and for solopreneurs. We don't get all this type of information very often. But now you founded Unbound Consultant. What's make you have all of this experience and you have years to start it. You never did. and you decided to take that leap. Why now? And also, what set the company apart from other consultants in the in the world of business?
Yeah, I mean, I had a lot of former visionaries call me the entrepreneur instead of the entrepreneur. And it was because of that fear of taking the financial leap. So I co-founded a sister company for one of my former agencies, a successful one that's still award winning, but that had the support and the backing of that larger company. There was Unbound was that leap into, I'm an adult, I'm a parent, I still have 4 children that, need things. And, but I had to just fully dive in. And I feel like this is kind of the last step to me showing other visionaries how to do it and how to do it well. I am one of the 5% of the 3% that happens to be both visionary and integrator. So I understand the way the visionary's brain works. And then I know, like I said earlier, know how to make that a reality. Unbound is just meant to be an example of that and how to do it correctly. One of the big reasons I wanted to launch Unbound is because I myself want to be like I already said, unbound by any restraints around, here's the box that we need to fit everyone in. I want to think outside of the box. But I also just want to myself be unbound by worrying about someone else telling me what I should be saying and what I should be trying to sell through to clients. What I want to do is do the right thing for clients every single time. This being unbound allows me to do just that. I could come in and truly focus on what my client needs because I actually care. It's not that other companies and other firms don't care. It's simply that once they grow and there are a number of employees under them, now they too have found themselves in a box that they can't get out of,
Yes.
trying to serve clients and trying to find out what's efficient. I think the biggest thing that I've learned through this process, and I work with a lot of other business consultants, actually, all with different unique expertise. And what I've learned is the one thing that I love is the one thing no one else thus far, this is not saying the whole world, but of the consultants that I work with, and there's at least, 25 of them total, they don't love the moment of chaos. That diving into the chaos of those startups, dealing with trying to get leadership teams aligned, which is not always an easy task, especially if you have very strong personalities in the room. That's not their favorite spot to be. They want there to be alignment there, and they want to simply focus on the scale. I want to make sure, I think what sets me apart is, first and foremost, I want to make sure the foundation is there. Do we have the right strategy? Do we have the right people? Looking at all the core functions of a successful business. Are those pieces in place? And if they're not, how do we first get them in place? That part is fun for me. I'm never afraid to do that. I'm also not afraid. My clients all know. I ask them when I come in, you can have 2 versions of me. You can have the coach who's just going to ask some questions and get you there. Or you can have me unabashed, which means I'll step into the danger if I have to. If there are issues I'm seeing that no one else is wanting to address, that means that's probably the very issue we need to address and tackle. And so part of what I have to do to set that foundation correctly is force those conversations too. And I think that's the big piece that sets me apart is that lack of fear of doing the right thing. At the end of the day, the clients could choose to keep me around or not. But one thing they'll never say about me is that I don't go in doing the right thing. That's all I care about.
So now earlier you said that you have a goal to help 500 entrepreneurs in the next 5 years. I'm going to keep that against you, just so you know that I'm going to be checking in every year how many you hit so far. So, but what inspired you to set such an ambitious goal, and what step are you going to take to achieve it?
Yeah, what inspired me is the fact that there are so many startups that fail. But yet I really see entrepreneurs as the backbone of our economy because of the jobs that they create. Think about Walt Disney. Walt Disney would not have been successful if it were not for his version of me, which happened to be his brother. No one talks about Roy Disney. But if Roy were not in place, Walt Disney would be a dream that died a long, Disney World, Walt Disney, everything Disney would have died a long time ago without that second command. And I know that you think about all of these companies that have been successful, if they didn't have, you look back at them, they all had that second command strongly in place. If they had not had that person, they would have failed. So part of the way I'm doing this is it's not just me. I have, a company, a group, we call ourselves the Impact Collaborative. Each of us are all fractional C-suite executives who can work together. There's obviously, of course, overlap because we are all business consultants, but we're able to bring one another in if needed based on what a client's needs are. So if I have a client that really has, a goal of exiting and selling within the next 5 years, I have Frank. Frank is my fractional CFO who specializes in mergers and acquisitions. When I have visionaries that are really struggling with letting go so that their company can grow, I have Tracy. She's my executive coach who works directly with visionaries. And I say, her job is to get visionaries out of their own way so the rest of us could do our job. I've been building a network of other strong consultants too. No one business coach, no one integrator is the same. We all are different in one way or another. And so part of what I'm doing myself and with the Impact Collaborative is really a little bit of matchmaking too. Like, am I the right match? If I'm not the right match, or if I'm at capacity and I can't take on more client workload, I'm not going to stop until I find a solution for that client. Just because they're not, a paying client yet, it doesn't matter. They're still an entrepreneur. So I'm going to help find that resource. And in some instances, I will just simply have lunch, coffee, cocktails, whatever it might be with entrepreneurs and just chat and give advice for an hour with no, expectation whatsoever of any type of relationship going from there. And at some point in time, they come back to me or they will refer someone to me. But just by helping them with one issue over a cup of coffee, that's an entrepreneur I've been able to help in some way. So it's going to be, it takes a village, right? I'm working diligently to not just work, find the right clients and immerse myself into those clients' companies and help make them successful. I'm also working really hard to continue to build this network of experts who also have that same innate passion for helping entrepreneurs.
So now, what advice would you give to entrepreneurs who are just starting their journey and looking to turn their vision into a successful business?
I would say start with purpose. Start with your why. There are a lot of people that figure out the what first. What am I making? I want to make a new mousetrap because I can make mousetraps better than any of the other companies out there. But why? Why are you making that? What problem are you solving? So I think step one is figuring out your why, because if you could clearly define your why, that is the first step to being able to then clearly communicate your vision to others. And that might be to investors. It might be to potential clients. Like, you have to be able to first figure out what your purpose is, what what is the problem you're trying to solve, and what you're giving back. Why are you creating this product, right, this service, whatever it might be? If you can take the time to figure that out first, that's step one. Step two is to find support. Like, if you're a true visionary and big ideas are definitely your strength, but execution may not be. You may not be able to work with an integrator just yet. Maybe you can, but at minimum, find a partner, even if it's an assistant, that can manage the execution piece on it so you can remain focused on the bigger picture.
Wow. And now, how can someone reach out to you? Let's say that someone like to have you as, the other right hand that can guide and support when the time needed, how can someone reach out and how did that process work?
Sure. Yeah. They can reach out to me directly by email. It's just Christian, Christian at unboundconsulting.com, or fill out the contact form on my website. I am still the Unbound Consultant, so all communication comes through me. And while I tried to make sure I'm dedicating the bulk of my day to clients, I always guarantee a response within 12 hours. So if they just want to reach out, check out my website, unboundconsulting.com, which, just FYI to everyone, is currently being updated. So ignore the not perfectly polished website as it currently is. But either way, the primary details are there, as is contact information.
So for over 20 years, you have been doing this. You finally take the leap. You start your own business, and you have a goal of 500 entrepreneurs to help in the next 5 years. So what happened after the 5 years?
That's a great question. I am choosing to remain focused on 5 years and prioritizing that. I think that the biggest thing that I have learned is to keep my eyes, my ears open, and my heart open to possibilities. I think that I've learned very quickly the universe always tells me where I need to be and where I need to go. I may sometimes be slow to listen myself, but as long as I remain open to those possibilities, the sky's the limit. I may, perhaps I up it to 10,000, entrepreneurs in 10 years.
I can see that. I can see that.
I think that there are going to be other ways to help entrepreneurs in the future. So my job and what my promise that I'm making both to myself and to just the ecosystem and all entrepreneurs out there is I'm never going to stop looking for those ways to create elegant, cost-effective solutions to help entrepreneurs. I realize, especially in the startup phase, just how hard it is to be able to afford outside resources. So, I'm going to continue to focus time and energy on what else can we do to help.
So anything else you'd like to share with us before I let you go today?
I don't think so. I think that's all.
Well, one thing for sure I can tell you, 5 years from now, me and you is going to have a conversation to see if you reach the 10,000 instead of the 500, because I have a feeling you probably will reach over the 500 in the next year to come, because so many entrepreneurs, you have no idea, so many, not just men, but women they have great ideas, great visions, but they don't know what to do. So I think that if you can reach every single one of them, that number 500 would be 10,000 within a year. I'm just saying, you might need to start hiring to get some help. But I think your vision is great as well, to be able to help that many people. And I hope that a lot out of that 500, a lot of it will be women, because we need people like you help. We need help from people like you, because a lot of us, we definitely don't know what we are doing. And don't get it wrong. It's not our specialty. Business is not something that when we were born, they say, here's a manual, go learn it and go do it. That's not something we had, just like when we have children. There's no manual with that either. So we need to go out there and figure it out on our own. And when we have women like yourself, you have children, you work with so many different companies, you have 20 years plus of experience. So we can use that knowledge to pass it on to more women, and then hopefully the next generation can be even better than we are. So I thank you for what you are doing.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Female Founders Podcast. That's it for this week's episode. Be sure to follow us on your favorite podcast app or connect with us on womel.com so that you don't miss our next episode. See you next time. Bye for now.